It sure seems like the NFL is open to a draft lottery. What do we think? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And Landon, we're going to be talking about some NFL rule changes, including a big one to the Olympics in 2028, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the draft lottery. So, Locked On Mavericks fans are having quite the week with the lottery.
Yes.
So we thought we would continue the positive vibes here, I guess, if you're a Mavs fan. It sure seems like the NFL is putting out feelers to the kind of national media, to the fans about a potential draft lottery. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a general rule that anytime Adam Schefter thinks something is a good idea, I'm usually against it.
Shifty follows me. Be careful here.
I think that, let's be fair. Shifty didn't even get the idea himself. I feel like he may have been slyly had it slipped across his desk and to have read. I hate this idea. I mean, I just think that I hate the draft lottery. I just think that and listen, I think as a long-suffering Mavs fan, or as much as a Mavs fan as I am, I could say without a doubt that before this year, the draft lottery did the Mavericks fans absolutely no favors.
They've never moved up in their franchise history.
Literally no favors. So, I do think that actually you could look at it one of two ways. You could look at it like, well, that the Mavs didn't, benefit from this system at all, but you could also look at it like, well, it also didn't have much of an effect on the Mavericks either. So it's not like a negative effect so much as anything. It's just a neutral effect. I just think I tend to think that it's another way for people to insert doubt into the results of what's happening. There's already enough conspiracy theory stuff going on about the scripting of the NFL. We already had that funny long-running joke. I think it was last season where they were talking about the scripting. And the NBA is worse, right? The NBA gets it much worse. I mean, there's maybe something to the NBA, like rigging
legit scandals about.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I mean, some of the breadcrumbs there are pretty serious. So, but yeah, I just think it inserts a level of doubt into the process. I don't think it really helps anything because there's just not NFL tanking is not a thing.
That was going to be my first thing. The NFL does not have a problem with tanking the way the NBA does, where it can be so egregious in the NBA. In the NFL, you're trying to win every single week. And because careers are so short, players have every incentive possible to go out and play as hard as possible.
Yeah. And like, I think it's hard to build rules around the NBA tanking thing, like, because it's like, how do you regulate motivations and what's inside someone's head? I think if the NFL actually had a tanking problem, it would look like coaches not playing their best players, which I think is, pretty clear and easy to try to find rules to prevent that sort of thing.
And we've only
right?
really had that happen like once or twice at the very, very tail end of the season, right? Because again, all these, unlike in the NBA where contracts are guaranteed, contracts are not fully guaranteed in the NFL. So every player is trying to go out and get that next contract. They're just trying to stay on rosters, right? Like you look at the turnover year over year, you get like 30% of the league is out of the league the following year. So players can't afford to do that.
Well, and it's also just, it's physically difficult. Like it's hard to play the NFL game at half speed or without trying. Like it's just, it's because it's such a physical game, I think with the NBA, there's ways to kind of, slow down the game or put yourself in disadvantages and miss a shot just barely, I think playing, with at half speed at the NFL is probably dangerous, and so it's just not mechanism, friendly for that sort of thing. And so why would we do this? Like, why would you add this in like unnecessarily, unless it's, a mechanism to add another advertising opportunity, another kind of, draft adjacent show to the kind of, show the three ring circus that is already the NFL offseason. I just it seems like a completely unnecessary extra rule that will add a bunch of uncertainty and an unnecessary skepticism on the NFL. It seems like it's completely just out of left field to be.
So what the positives for this, right? First of all, the TV ratings and the special the NFL could make. Now, that would have ridiculous numbers, that 2-hour TV show that they would produce. But the NFL doesn't need that. They're already the most watched league by far in the US. Like, they don't need to have some kind of gimmick. I do wonder if they're thinking about the idea of, hey, we have the same 3 or 4 teams that are drafting inside the top 5 or 6 every year. These teams have not shown the ability to develop quarterbacks. So this is a quarterback league. Maybe if there was a lottery, we could start getting some really good quarterbacks on different situations and different teams. Reward the teams that finish 6 and 10, but are drafting at 9 or 10 overall, without maybe the first pick, but at the third pick. I got to believe that's their reasoning behind it, but it just seems like there's way too many issues that could pop up.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, if it's not about fairity, or it's not about fair play, then what are we doing?
I like fairity. Like, that's a great word.
Fairity. It's like, because it's like fair and parity together. Fairity. Yeah. So it's I think that's the thing for me, is that it's a lot like adding more playoff games to the season. It's like, okay, I mean, I understand the ratings aspect to it, but now you're diluting the regular season. I feel like this situation, it dilutes the situation a lot, and I think it just makes it's a lot cleaner with the rules very straightforward. You're the worst record team, you get the first pick. Like, I don't know that it needs to be more difficult than what that.
The NFL doesn't need to cheapen the product in any way to get some more views, right? And that's what this would feel like a little bit. Now, again, I understand some of the benefits, but I don't think it outweighs some of the negative stuff, because look what just happened in the NBA, right? You had a Mavs team that was in the play-in game, that was just in the NBA championship a year before, that they're going to draft Cooper Flagg, one of the best prospects we've ever seen. What if that team was, let's say, the 49ers, right? And the 49ers, who just had a bad year with injuries, all of a sudden get the number 1 pick, and now they're adding Travis Hunter to their team, right? I don't know. I mean, again, that's probably great for the NFL and the 49ers, but I don't know if that's great for the rest of the league.
No, it's not. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that part of it is also giving hope to these fan bases, right? Like, you have to wonder about some of these NBA teams that, like, probably don't have a ton of fans, right? Because at a certain point, you lose hope if you can't get in the top 5 to get a difference-making player. You've been screwed by the lottery a couple of years in a row. I mean, it would be difficult to, like, continue to go back and, like, feel good about your team if, like, luck keeps screwing your team.
Well, I look at, like, the Utah Jazz in the NBA, and they're a team. They're a small market team that has a hard time keeping talent. Their only way to rebuild is through the draft. And, when you're supposed to get the number 1 or number 2 pick, and you don't get that, and you have a team like the Mavs, what's that, the 4th biggest market in the NBA? Now they get a superstar. I don't know how you're ever going to be able to compete with that in a lottery system. It makes it really hard. Now, the NFL is better about having some of these small market teams become good, like the Bengals, but the Bengals had the number 1 pick, and they got Joe Burrow, right? Like, that's how they turned their franchise around. If they were continuing to draft at like 7, 8, 9, I don't know how you get over the hump.
The NFL needs to be very careful about, like you suggested earlier, not kind of watering down the product by adding gimmick to it. They need to continue to err on the side of fairity. And making sure that every team has a good chance to build their roster to the point where they become a playoff contender.
All right, let's talk about some other rules we'd like to see the NFL actually implement over the offseason. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live, and this year's matchups are already delivering. This is one of the best playoffs we've had in a long time. And if you want in, Gametime makes it fast and easy to get tickets, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually go down the closer that we get to tip off. And with killer last minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fee, Gametime is a total game changer. Plus, we just got the NFL schedule released this week, and you better believe that we're already starting to look for some tickets. There's a week 3 game, Miami at Buffalo. I think it's a Thursday night game that I'm going to be trying to go to. I'm going to use Gametime to get my tickets. You can find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to this exclusive discount. Make sure that you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Landon, let's talk about some rules that we actually want to see implemented, not the draft lottery, but what are a couple of things that the NFL could steal maybe from Major League Baseball or NBA to improve their league?
All right, I'm actually going to ask that you go first because
Okay.
I do think that yours is interesting. We need to have a little bit more conversation. Mine is just going to be I'm going to present it. We're both going to say yes, that's awesome, and move on. So let's hear what yours is.
So one of the things that the NBA does really well is they have this thing called bird rights. So if you draft a player, you get to keep them at a discounted rate compared to the salary cap. And one of the reasons I like this, I don't want to get into the technical stuff, but essentially the idea is that you can pay a player $10 million and he's only going to count for $7.5 million on the cap. The reason I like this is because if you're a team that drafts well and you want to keep maybe some of these older players, like a perfect example, Jordan Lewis. He's been around the team since 2017.
Yeah.
He goes out and makes $10 million on the open market. I think maybe Dallas is looking at more of the $7-8 million range. It helps keep continuity. It keeps some of your favorite players on your same team for a long time. And I think that's a good thing. I kind of miss the days of when you draft a player and they're on your team 8, 9, 10 years. I don't always love the player movement. And I think the idea of being able to get a discount on the salary cap for a player isn't a terrible idea.
It's ironic that this rule came from the NBA because honestly, one of the problems I think that the NBA is suffering from in some ways, maybe I'm wrong about this, but
No,
I think this phenomenon exists, is that it's a player-based league, which is not a problem. But if you root for a team, it's becoming more and more difficult, I think, as an NBA fan to root specifically for an NBA franchise.
I wouldn't say. I think a lot of NBA fans are now rooting for their favorite player, and they're just going to follow that player wherever he goes. Listen, I'm a LeBron fan. I follow LeBron when he was in Cleveland. And then when he was with Miami, I was rooting for Miami to win, and then back to Cleveland, and then obviously now with my NBA champion Los Angeles Lakers. So gosh. Yes, I completely agree with what you're saying.
So yeah, I think that it's ironic that rule is in the NBA because I do think it would help NFL teams kind of continue to build their brands by keeping players that they would like to associate with their team, right? Like I hate that Jordan Lewis is going to finish his career as a Jaguar, right? Like that guy's a Dallas Cowboy through and through, in my opinion, right? I need Tyron Smith, like maybe could fall under this category.
If Dallas could have kept Tyron, let's say they pay him $10 million, but he's only counting 6 against the cap, I bet you they would have done that.
Yeah. So I mean, I like this idea a lot because I depending on how it's done, it wouldn't hurt free agency too much, especially now that the cap space is the way it is. Like, that frankly, all the good players are not making it to free agency anymore anyway. So why not give your teams the ability to kind of hold on to their long-term players and maybe be able to keep the money in such a way that the players don't, take a pay cut in order to stay in the town or with the team that they like.
Yeah. And the NFL would have to figure out ways to do that. I don't know if you do it based on the guaranteed salary or the base salary, because of course there's going to be some GM that tries to get around that. But I do think a system that allows you to keep your veterans at a discounted price. Not to them, they're not losing any money. Just to
No.
be clear, the veterans aren't losing money, but you're just able to fit those guys under your cap. I think would help. What's your idea?
All right, so obviously mine is built on some of recency bias and some things that have been going on, namely the NHL playoffs that are going on currently, right? And the fact that the Dallas Cowboys traded for George Pickens. Guys, it's time to make fighting in one of the rules in the NFL. Like, I just imagine the referees kind of standing back, right? Just standing there while Darius Slay and George Pickens are absolutely throwing haymakers at each other. All wearing helmets, guys. I just think it's time that we actually just lean into it and allow fighting in the NFL, and we keep it like the NHL, where you kind of let them do their thing and then pull them apart once they're finished. It's time, Roger. Let's make it happen.
No notes. I'm just completely in. Just give me that right now. Just install that right now. NFL would be a lot more fun. I got another one for you. This one is a little harder, but we see in some of these big soccer leagues, if teams at the bottom of the standings aren't pulling their weight and they're not competitive, they get relegated to another league.
They get relegated. Yeah.
I don't know how you do that in the NFL if you send those teams down to like the UFL or whatever, but
college SEC.
Well, I do feel like there has to be some kind of punishment for these owners that don't want to spend money, that meddle, that are incompetent, and they have had. I'm not saying names, but you know who I'm talking about now. The teams that have been at the bottom of the dumpster for the last 10 years, there should be some kind of penalty if you continue to suck for that long.
I don't care that Myles Garrett's on this team. Why is Cleveland still in this league that we are in? Like what are we even doing here?
Which,
like,
it stinks for Cleveland fans because Cleveland fans are some of the best.
Are the best. But
it's
so much history there too, right? Like that's the thing.
It should be the owners that get punished. Maybe they're not getting the same revenue share as some of the other ones because there just hasn't been competitive. I don't know, but there has to be some way to make sure that those bottom teams, and maybe this is how you kind of figure out tanking if that ever becomes an issue. You can't be a bottom, 2 team in the league 3 years in a row, or you can't be a bottom 3 team 2 years in a row. That will really incentivize teams to try to win right now.
Yeah, it really feels like the salary floor is like a half measure on this, right?
Yeah,
like we need the full measure of you need to do something with your team or prepare to be punished in a way that hurts, right? Okay. I think I agree with that.
I got one more.
Let's do it.
There's a couple leagues out there where the point differential ends up mattering more than win-losses because there's sometimes where you'll beat a team so badly, but it only counts for 1 win, or if you win on a last-second field goal, it counts the same. What if the NFL went to a point differential for seeding in the playoffs, right? Because we've had some times like last year was the Bucks were 9-8 and got to host a wild card game. What if you reseeded the conference by point differentials?
I like the idea of point differential as part of the formula. I don't know if I want it as like the first, determining factor as the ranking. But tiebreaker makes a ton of sense to me. Like, absolutely. Like, maybe even more of a division record. Because
honestly. there have been years, and I'm thinking of a certain team in the AFC North that goes 9-8 every year that has a negative point differential every single year, and they still are able to get in the playoffs. And then you have other teams, like I think the Vikings last year that finished second or third in point differential in the NFL, that had to play on the road in round 1. So I'm not sure what the correct way to do this is, but I do wonder if point differential, because now there's an incentive to play your guys all game and really pedal to the metal rather than maybe coasting sometimes in these third and fourth quarters.
Yeah. And, I think point differential is, without being stated, specifically, point differential was obviously a major component to the BCS ranking back when they were doing that, right? So I don't think it's out of the question to start including it as part of the formula of ranking these teams, because I think it matters.
All right, we want to hear your ideas to make the NFL better, so make sure you send them into us at McCoolBCB, at Marcus _Mosher, and over on Twitter, Locked On Cowboys. But Landon, we also got another rule change from the NFL on Thursday regarding the Olympics. We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and the news never stops. Hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Landon, we heard on Thursday afternoon that the NFL is now allowing their NFL players to participate in the 2028 Olympics, where flag football is now going to be an official sport in the Olympics. So my question to you, if you could pick one player from the Cowboys, this year's Cowboys teams, let's say there was an Olympics this year, who would it be?
One player.
Just one guy.
Man.
Think about how flag football is. Flag football is very different than regular NFL football.
So in flag football, they play both ways, right? Like, so
Correct.
you got to pick one player to play at both sides. So I think the answer is pretty obvious, in my opinion. Maybe it's not. I would pick Micah Parsons. Like, I think he would be the guy that's going to be snatching on the flags, and he would be the guy that would be pretty difficult to whose flag to snatch. I think there could be an argument made for Trayvon Diggs, maybe, similar kind of
Diggs
situation.
Is a good one. Yep.
But yeah, I think for me, we got to start this conversation out with Parsons. I would imagine
he's your best overall athlete, so that makes a lot of sense. You can have him, be a linebacker. You can have him be a tight end or whatever you need him to be in flag football. I think the other obvious answer is CeeDee Lamb, just because it's basically glorified 7-on-7, and CeeDee Lamb would dominate. But I've got two other names. If we don't want to risk our two best players, I've got two other guys that I think would be absolutely phenomenal. Number one, Kevontae Turpin.
Of course, yeah. Right? Kevontae Turpin may be the best player in the fantasy football Olympics. Like, they may actually make a Greek bust out of Kevontae Turpin after he's done playing flag football.
Because so much of the game is built on quickness and being able to not break tackles, because you don't have to worry about that in flag football. It's about making sure that guys can't grab your flags, right? So I almost think that Turpin would be the number one choice because he is so quick and so dynamic with the ball. You have him play, obviously, receiver. He's a corner. He probably would be my number one pick.
Yeah, he would be pretty tough to beat. I mean, I think along those same lines, I think Jaden Blue would be pretty good at flag football as well. When you watch his tape, he's a guy that, he doesn't break a lot of tackles, doesn't have to break a lot of tackles because not a lot of people touch him, So I think along those lines, that would probably translate pretty well. But yeah, I mean, Turpin. I was watching I was rewatching some, I think it was just Cowboys highlights as I was eating dinner the other day, and the kickoff return where he did the 360 came up, and I had just forgotten about exactly that little spin move he did before he ran up there. But imagine him doing that in space against some 20-year-old Greek kid who's never seen Gametime Turpin before. It would be embarrassing for a bunch of different countries all over the world.
But like CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, Kevontae Turpin might be a little too valuable considering his role for the Cowboys offense this year and special teams. So I got one more pick.
Yeah.
Deuce Vaughn would be the best flag football player I've ever seen. He's 5'5". Can you imagine? He gets so low to the ground. Those taller corners, linebackers, they're not going to be able to reach that far down to grab the flags. The flags are going to be touching the ground as he's making moves. I kind of think Deuce Vaughn is like the perfect flag football player.
On offense, though, because I don't know where you're playing him on defense, because if you play him on defense, you're just throwing the ball up to whoever he's covering,
So a lot of times in these flag football leagues, you'll have your fastest and quickest guy be the linebackers because they can blitz.
Gotcha. They can chase down guys. Like Turpin did in the All-Star game, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you want, is the guys that are really good at changing direction. They're not really covering people, they're just spying the quarterback. And I think Deuce Vaughn, with how quick and explosive he is, it's a pretty good fit.
That's fair. Yeah, I think he would be pretty good. I mean, even if you could get around him, speed, quickness wise, you still also have to get down low to try to grab that flag. So yeah, I think Deuce Vaughn would be a pretty good fit for sure.
No Joe Milton love for the quarterback, guy that can throw the ball 75.
Well, he can probably run too, right? Like, I think he probably gets there. I think Will Greer's probably a better flag football player than he is in the NFL. So who knows?
Well, the thing with Milton is he's so big and physical that he just wouldn't be able to use that part of his game in flag football, right? So you're actually better off if you watched any of these like pro flag games it's a lot of these quarterbacks that are extremely quick and that can take off. You don't necessarily need to be the guys with bazookas attached to their shoulders.
Like fun. Lamar Jackson is without a doubt like number one overall, like the best flag football player of all time, right? Like essentially,
and like Josh Allen might be a better quarterback, but in flag football, Lamar actually makes a lot more sense.
And I would say Josh Allen may be a similar threat in the NFL running the football, but in flag football, not the same threat because you're not running through people, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's more about your ability to evade tackles than to run over guys. So. Although some of the flag leagues that we have here in Corey get pretty physical for a bunch of 35-year-old washed up guys. So,
well, listen, we still got 2 more years, so I know that he's probably getting older and a little long in the tooth. But now that it's an Olympic event, I know Barry Sanders is like 60 years old, but I bet he could still get out there and make some people miss. I'd like to at least see it happen, maybe.
See, Dion would be like the ultimate flag football guy, right? Play wide, or Travis Hunter, like right?
I'd say Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter very well could be like the guy that's carrying the American flag for that 2028 Olympic team.
Travis Hunter will be what, 25 years old at that point?
Yeah,
it's probably like peak.
That's probably why Turpin can't do it, right? Is because Turpin's like he'll be 30 by that point, or older than that. So it's probably too old. But it's going to be fun to see who makes it because it really will be an interesting mix up of NFL talent.
I can't wait to watch. It's going to be so much fun. We just have to wait 3 more summers before we get there. Yeah, should be a lot of fun. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Make sure you check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday, breaking down all of the latest Dallas Cowboys news.